Hi, my name is Shravani, and I am a third year PhD student at the University of Warwick, and I'm based at WMG, Warwick Manufacturing Group. And I'm doing a PhD at the moment in human factors, and I'm looking at the relationship between subjective well being and how people take travel choices to be able to make inclusive policies in the future. And my background is urban and transport planner. I'm an urban and transport planner by background, and before doing a PhD, I was working with the industry, the government, and also a little bit with the academia, but not inside it. However, when I was working on ground, I realized that there are so many things yet to be researched about, and that's when I got this opportunity at WMG, actually funding from EPSRC, government of UK, that funded me to do a PhD in engineering, and that's the reason why I got inside it. And when I got inside the academia, I knew that there is still so much more to learn about, and also equally work in partnership with the industry to be able to have newer technologies as well as implementation going on hand in hand. So I am from India, and a place called Assam, which is in the northeast part of India. And there it was a really small kind of a city, but as time passed by, it became really hustling, bustling. And from younger times, I saw like, okay, which was a quite serene city, it started having different kinds of urban issues like congestion, traffic, air pollution, etc. And when I was younger, I didn't even know that these kind of professions existed, because we were so, brainwashed that you have to be a doctor or an engineer. So I didn't know what kind of studies I have to do in order to change the city. Accidentally, I run into a course called urban planning back in India, and that's when I learned about what are the things that is required in order to function a city, like governance, environment, sewage, sanitation, and transportation. And when I studied transportation, I thought like, wow, this is really important for the overall city to function. And I did my specialization, like masters in transportation, and that's how it began. And I never stopped working in transportation, whether it is public transport, active mobility like cycling and walking, as well as policymaking, etc. And now I'm doing a PhD in future technologies of transport. So that's how I got into it. So currently I'm doing a PhD in human factors department in understanding the relationship between subjective well-being and how do people make travel choices in order to make inclusive policies. What actually inspired me to get into this topic is because before this I was working heavily with the industry, and I was chasing for adoption of newer technologies for the consumers. However, sometimes we forget what people want and who are we designing things for. So with this PhD, I am actually looking at those kind of things from a bottoms up level, as to bring a new technology in transportation. What do different kinds of target groups really look for? For example, I'm working a lot with people with disabilities, and to understand their specific needs and requirements for accessible transport. Because just an example of one futuristic transport is autonomous taxis. So we think about that these are the taxis, or like the transportation modes that are going to change the lives of people by becoming more accessible. However, is this really the case? How much of that is taken into consideration in understanding public's point of view? So that's what is giving me real happiness in working with the people and for the people to bring in newer technologies and become useful for the government as well to build in new inclusive policies. With my career, I realized that it was really difficult for the government to make decisions with time, every 2 or 3 years, because technology keeps on changing so rapidly. So my idea was to help and support with this intervention, especially for transport, to understand how we go hand in hand with newer technologies, as well as to understand how people are actually impacted by those kind of decisions. So that's the reason why I'm working on this specific area, to understand the relationship between how newer technologies, policies are going to have an impact on the subjective well-being of people. So this is something that I'm looking at in depth with regards to specific target groups, for example, for people with disabilities, vulnerable communities, or rather say hard to reach communities, because at the moment everything is very tokenistic, although we are saying it is accessible, but not in depth. So I think that is one of the highlights that I'm trying to help manufacturers as well design their products from inclusive point of view. To keep up with the latest research, nowadays it's so easy that information is available everywhere, online, offline, and you can actually talk to people to understand what's going on. So for my PhD, I use a lot of data sets which are already existing from national programs as well as international data sets for comparison. The other thing is previously published articles by several scientists all over the world to understand what's going on, what they are working on, and what's missing. And the other thing is that we also need to talk to different kinds of stakeholders, for example, the policymakers and the people, to understand what is actually missing in terms of qualitative data. So data in terms of quantitative can tell you what is happening. However, if you don't talk to people, you will never know why it is happening. So that's the reason it is very important to get to the root of the cause to be able to solve the issues. So these are the ways I keep up with my different kinds of research. During my professional career, I have been fortunate to be involved with a lot of really, groundbreaking or, for example, impactful research and projects. And some of them would be making of the electric vehicle policies for the national government in India and being involved in COP26 and COP27 for newer technologies like electric vehicles adoption. However, at the moment, the most recent highlight was with my PhD in WMG, and that was about a paper that got recently published in ITSC World Conference, which is one of the biggest conferences for autonomous transport, or say newer technologies transport. And my topic was understanding how autonomous taxis are going to impact people with disabilities in the future. So what is that concept that we're talking about, that new technologies will come and they're going to change their life? So I did a lot of different methodologies like quantitative and qualitative to be able to understand how their current taxi experiences are influencing their perceived accessibility for future taxi experiences. And that got selected to be published. And surprisingly, although it was a transport conference for accessible transport, out of almost 900 papers, my one was only paper who was focusing on people with disabilities. So it was funny, but at the same time, it was concerning that what people claim are not being researched on. So I think that is the most proud moment, that I could actually work on people who are actually needing it. I'm from India, and I had my professional as well as academic experiences in back home in India, as well as now recently in the UK. So I can give you a flavor of both the worlds, and from the academic as well as the professional fronts. So the academia is quite intense over there, and like most of the time, it's like societal biases, like you have to be in a certain career by a certain amount of time, etc., etc. However, when we compare this to the UK, we see that from a younger age, it is mostly focused on the child or the person's, like well-being, and also what they are interested in, rather than just forcing things on them. So that is quite nice and eye-opening from my perspective. And in terms of professional experiences, it is competitive in India as well, because it's such a big country. Everybody is fighting for the same roles. It's understandable. However, in terms of value, I think they always look for, like if it is an engineering role, they would look for specific backgrounds and specific years of experience, and the respect level is also given from that perspective. However, working in the UK, especially with my supervisors and my managers, is like based on your skills, you're given so much respect and people listen to you and you're being valued. And in terms of hiring process as well, I would say, like, rather than looking at n number of experience, people look at transferable skills. So if you have a lot of soft skills, you can always learn a new software. So that's not a big deal. But to understand and value a person, I think in the UK it's doing much better, and India is still learning. So yeah. So in my career, I have taken active efforts in order to inspire younger people, especially women from South Asian countries, to be able to be associated with different kinds of STEM related subjects, as well as something that they are really passionate about, to be able to drive real change. So, one of the examples was I was the youth ambassador for transport, like a transport fellow for UNFCCC COP27, where I advocated how younger people can influence decisions from the other end of the table. At the moment, through my research and my talks, I am inspiring other people by telling them how I started this career, and that these are really, rewarding and fulfilling options that they can choose. I think the best part about working with WMG as somebody coming from professional background already, and not just a career transition from being a student to a student, is that I have a balance between working with the industry as well as research. So, which means that I'm just not sitting behind my laptop and doing my research, but also talking to different kinds of industry partners to be able to understand what their specific needs and requirements are, to be able to design my research so that it is applied. Other than that, I think there's a lot of support that is available from somebody who is coming from my background, that is from a different country, different language, so either it is for mental health, is it for physical fitness, or any kinds of services which requires professional help or hand holding. There will be support for everything. The supervisors are really respectful in terms of where you're coming from, and also they're very, very helpful in terms of making your transition. Although PhD is intense, they would make you feel really easy by how they guide it. So it's a tremendous effort that they put into. And the other thing is that there is a lot of clubs and societies which any new students coming should take advantage of, and people are really feeling welcome over here because of the inclusive nature of the department.